Hello everybody. So today I want to make a quick video about Enphase. Enphase is under $100 again, and this time it seems to be for news which to me are either inconsequential or don't have anything to do with them. The first news is that they are being removed from the NASDAQ 100, and that makes sense. Why are they being removed? Well, because the stock price dropped, and the NASDAQ 100 is the top 100, the largest, keyword is here, is the largest stock by market cap in the NASDAQ 100. So that's not a removal from the NASDAQ, right? Enphase is still on the NASDAQ, and so investors that say own a NASDAQ mutual fund, they're going to own all of the stocks in the NASDAQ, but it does change something if you own the triple Q, the QQQ. If you own the Qs, then Enphase will not be there. But this is fairly inconsequential because it was at the bottom of the 100 anyways. And so, if you have $9 billion worth of Enphase versus $10 trillion of Magnificent 7 stocks, probably more than 10 trillion of Magnificent 7 stocks in the NASDAQ, it's really meaningless to me. It makes the news fine. The truth is, once Enphase gets back to the prior valuations, right, that it used to have before the sell-off, it will get back in the NASDAQ 100, and hopefully it will make good news, although I doubt it, right? The news cycle is really driven by negativity more than anything. The other piece of news, which is why Enphase is down quite a bit over yesterday, why it was down yesterday, is because Sunnova Energy sinks as Congress seeks a history of predatory sales practices. And apparently they sold solar to elderly folks. And yes, that's probably a little unethical. You need to be careful. There is that famous meme on the internet of a 97-year-old man driving out with a brand new Cadillac. It's always a blurred line how you sell and who you sell to. But in my view, this does not impact Enphase. This is not Enphase, and this is not most of the solar industry, by the way. This is just one bad actor, one bad player that's under investigation, not the whole solar industry. And we know that aside from the quote-unquote premier solar providers, which are Enphase and to a lesser extent SolarEdge, but I'm still going to put them in the top providers, Enphase and SolarEdge, we know that people outside of those top two, tend to be a little shady because they have practices like, free solar panels. But let's be honest. If you believe a billboard and you're gonna call the billboard that says free solar panels, it's kind of like when you drive around in the U.S. how many green light, lights. How many lights do you see? Things like make $10,000 a month, or flip houses, or a house for flip, sometimes you're going to have shady business practices. It is unfortunate, but I don't think that impacts Enphase, and I don't think that impacts SolarEdge either, yet these two stocks are down, so the market reacts, the market sells everything as a basket. They see one company being singled out, and therefore they feel like everything is awful, right? We see a similar pattern with Tesla. For example, you may have a bad news on Rivian, or bad news on Lucid, or bad news on legacy automakers selling EVs, and then Tesla stock will fall in sympathy, even though they don't operate in the same league. This is kind of the same thing. I also want to say that there is a pattern of the news, and especially local news and local news cycles, to stick to these stories and really amplify these stories. They'll send the news reporters at the home of the elderly person who's been scammed, and that will make a whole 5-minute documentary, and they'll really promote these documentaries. And this is in line with politicians picking up the issue, because politicians, it makes them look good in front of their constituency. I'm not saying it didn't happen at Sunnova. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. That doesn't interest me. It's not a stock that interests me. But to me, this is largely a narrative. This is, if there is scams, it is at the edge. It is not the core of the business. The core of the business of solar has very, very strong fundamentals. And that's why I'm going to take the remainder of this video telling you why I love Enphase under 100. I love this stock under 100 for so many reasons that are long-term, that are not based on the news cycle, and not based on just clickbaiting and getting a bunch of clicks. So What are some of the reasons I love Enphase? As a reminder, it's always good to remind ourselves. Subsidies. The subsidies are here until 2035. They'll start phasing them out in 2033. They're out here until 2035. I have made this video, and let that sink in to that statement, which is the stock right now, in my view, is cheaper than all of the subsidies they're gonna get, I recommend looking at this video if you haven't seen it. Enphase, over $1 billion a year in subsidies soon. Yeah, that's where they're headed, $1 billion a year in IRA subsidies. So you're looking at a stock where the present value of that company at around $10 billion enterprise value, that present value is likely lower than how much subsidies they're going to get. And as Mandy says on the call, direct pay. It's direct pay from the treasury, these subsidies. So they're going to get so many subsidies that they didn't need in the first place. Elon Musk has said that multiple times. Don't give us subsidies. Many players have said that multiple times, but the US went ahead and did this whole IRA package. And so as investors, we benefit from market entirely discounting these subsidies, entirely discounting them. Then, what other good news do we have? We have a $1 billion share buyback. So normally I'd prefer to see a company invest in its growth. It's not the route they took. They decided to go into a share buyback. They decided to maintain their pricing. Enphase is a little shy on the marketing. We are launching a little bit of marketing campaign, but it's mostly talking about the sun. So I think they could do a better job at marketing. But it's mostly a business whose slowdown is due, if you look into it, it's due to the inventory issue and the fact that they overshipped. In other words, the decline that you see in revenue in Q3 and in Q4, that they've guided in Q4, has to do with them reducing inventory in the channel, right? Solar is still getting installed. It's still getting set up, and they still have a good run rate of solar getting set up. The business is flat right now due to interest rates. But in the revenue, it's not showing as flat. In the revenue, it's showing as down because they're shipping less to their distributor because they shipped too much to their distributor a few quarters ago. But that's it, right? It doesn't. The business is actually not declining. The business is actually flat. So they decided to do a share buyback. I understand the shares are very cheap. It's the way the CEO does it. I think over the long run, that's going to help long-run investors. Over the short run, I don't expect much of an effect, but I invest in this company over the long run. Reducing share count is good. Then, third point is this is an energy company that is necessary for our future because energy underlies absolutely everything we do, and households are going to need much more energy as they acquire electric vehicles. As they acquire electric vehicles, all of a sudden, if you have a house that has 2 electric vehicles, you need to produce some energy on your roof because the grid may not be able to handle every single house using that energy. So energy is an important sector. It's the most important sector of the economy. I often say if you look at Rockefeller and the Rockefellers, the richest man in the world back in the day, Rockefeller, what made him the richest man in the world? Energy. Energy is at the core of everything we do. There is nothing in the economy that is not related to energy. And as we move to a world that is more and more automated, and everything becomes more and more automated, energy becomes the only input. And so you have a company that's at the core of the energy revolution. It's tackling the problem of energy from a different angle than, say, Tesla with its battery packs and its mega packs. It's going after it at a different angle, but it is still tackling energy, and it is winning in the space of solar, where a company like Tesla is not winning in solar, right? Solar City is not doing much. Enphase is winning in solar. So what I want to point out here is that Enphase is the leader in residential solar. This is not a lifestyle energy stock or digital payments company. This is a much more meaningful company that's more at the root of everything we do, that underlies everything we do in the economy. Enphase focuses on residential solar. Why is that important compared to mostly commercial, to the surprise of SolarEdge? But SolarEdge is heavily used in commercial. Why is residential important? Because there's many more, tenfold more residential roofs out there than there are commercial roofs. I believe the space you want to be is in the residential space. That's where most of the rooftops are. That's where most of the money is going to be in the future, in my view. Plus, the commercial solar adoption is further ahead than the residential solar adoption. Residential solar adoption is still under 10% around the world. The US is actually around 5% solar adoption residential. The EU is about 10%. Australia is about 30%. We have multiple folds of growth in the major continents, right? The US in the West. In the US and in Europe, we have major growth ahead for solar. Take a walk in your neighborhood and ask yourself how many of those homes have solar. I bet you it's not that many, and I bet you if you are located in Europe or in the US, you take a walk in your neighborhood, you can do a 10x. You can do a 10x. And that's what I envision. I envision a world where 80 to 90% of homes have solar on their roof because it's free electricity. The sun shines for free, and you're not taking advantage of it, right? If you front the cost of the system, if you front the cost of the panels, you have a payback period between 6 years and 9 years, depending, and then you have virtually free energy for 25 years is a warranty, but we know these systems last much longer than 25 years because they don't have any mechanical parts. This is not like a wind turbine that you have to oil and grease and maintain. There's no mechanical part in solar. It just sits there. It just sits there, literally. And we have examples from people who got solar in the Jimmy Carter era in the 70s, where everybody was all about that stuff, early adopters. The solar is still making energy, even though solar was placed in the late 70s. Microinverters. Let's talk about microinverters. So a bunch of the play of Enphase, of course, is a bet of microinverters. The fact that the subsidy of the IRA is almost twice as high for microinverters as it is for string inverters. And microinverters are poised to become pervasive in all Enphase products. You know, Enphase is developing bidirectional charging for your EVs, right? We know the Cybertruck just launched bidirectional charging. That's going to have 6 Enphase microinverters. The Enphase battery has another 6 microinverters. All of the products in Enphase are centered around this microinverter, which they are making at scale. They're manufacturing millions per quarter. They're making them at scale. They're getting subsidies at scale. And the microinverters, I believe, is the better technology. It is the consumer electronics version of a more bulky string inverter, which if you look at how string inverters are made, they're a little more bulky. They have transformers. They have wires. That's why they're not warranted as long, right? The warranty of a string inverter is 12 years. The warranty of a microinverter is 25 years. There's plenty of advantages. I've spent a lot of time covering the differences between microinverters and string inverters on this channel, but the market doesn't make a difference between SolarEdge and Enphase. SolarEdge sells off, Enphase sells off. It just looks at the whole thing as solar, and it doesn't care. It's crazy that they don't go into the granularity, in my view. And lastly, the last point is why solar? Because solar will converge with electric cars. Solar will converge with utilities, virtual grids, right? This is the revolution that we have ahead, you know, which is the creation of new utilities, the creation of new virtual grid by connecting, weaving together thousands of homes that are roofs, and you weave them together through an app, and then it becomes a utility, and then you have energy sharing, and bright future in my view. And again, validated by 65% of electric cars sold in the US are Teslas, right? 65%, and they've just announced bidirectional charging, and this is going to be a major move in my view, a benefit. And the last thing I'll say is the interest rates are finally coming down. The 10 years is at a 4.22. We'll see today what happens with interest rates, but you know, I think it's gonna come down. And if you look at the CME Fed Watch tool, they're now saying 40%. Now that's as of today. If you looked a month and a half ago, they had it at 28% for a March rate cut. So the odds of a March rate cut moved from 28% to 40%. In a month and a half. That's why the market, a lot of people are thinking, including me, that March might be the moment that we have a drop in interest rates, because these odds for a March cut keep coming up, and we're at 40%, right? All we need is a 50%, and we might get there. And if we get a rate cut in March, wow, that would be amazing for solar stocks, which are products that are mostly financed, and this is why the adoption has been slowing. So anyways, I'm happy to buy Enphase at under 100, and I'm buying again. So Thank you for watching. This was not investment advice. This is just entertainment. I hope you were entertained. No investment advice. Please like, please subscribe. Please follow me on X if you can at BitTheDenominator. Have a wonderful day and thank you for watching.